Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Saturday, October 17th, 2020, and coincidentally, we are 17 days until the 2020 presidential election. So, since we all talk about the 2016 polling data, and a lot of people would like to assume that the polls were off by a pretty significant margin, we are going to be applying the polling shifts in all of the yellow states based off the current 2020 average. How did I do this, might you ask? I went to Real Clear Politics and I took the average, and we're going to take Wisconsin for example, and I took the RCP average that Hillary Clinton was up. I'm using a four-way race because you cannot deny the impact of Gary Johnson nor Jill Stein, but this race meaning 2020, is absolutely a two-way race. However, in 2016, Hillary Clinton led by 6.5% on the RCP average. Donald Trump ended up winning it by 0.7%. That is a swing of 7.2% in favor of the GOP. So I apply that to the 2020 average from 538. I honestly trust it a lot more than I do Real Clear Politics, just I don't have a state-by-state 2016 data provided by 538 for all of the polls. So we're using it for the 2020 data just to get a little bit more of an accurate sense of where it actually stood. But, for example, Wisconsin, 7.2% swing from 2016. Applying that now, Biden would end up winning Wisconsin by 0.5%, assuming that the polls swing by the exact same amount. So, in that scenario, Wisconsin would be a tilt Democratic state. Now, this is not exactly going to be a super accurate map. I mean, we are working in a scenario where the entirety of the 2016 polls were just as incorrect as they are this time around, and this swing would just be completely unrealistic for it to happen again. And honestly, I don't really think that the polls are going to be swung one way or another. All in all, they've gotten a lot more accurate, but let's go ahead and just get right into this map. You're not here to hear me ramble about 2016 polling data. So let's get started with the safe states. That's generally how we do things. And we do actually have some states that are moving in favor of the Democrats. So in 2016, yes, Donald Trump did very well. He was able to, win in a number of states where he was underwater in the polling, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. However, in some of these other battleground states, such as New Mexico or Colorado, the polls actually were incorrect. They incorrectly gave us an idea of where Hillary Clinton actually stood. For example, Colorado had Clinton up 2.9%. She ended up winning it by 4.9%. So, yes, it's a 2-point swing, but it is enough to make a difference. And as the rest will show you, 2% definitely matters. But New Mexico, Colorado, and now Maine's 1st District, which were states that weren't exactly polled too heavily, nor did they have the most accurate polling data, they are now in the safe Democratic column based off where Biden stands today and the 2016 incorrect value. Now for the safe Republican states, we have Alaska and Utah. If you remember Utah and why it was competitive, it was because of Evan McMullin, the independent conservative candidate, who this year has now endorsed Joe Biden. He received more than 20% of the vote in Utah in 2016, which is why some Democrats think that Utah could actually narrow up. Now, it's not competitive for Biden. Trump probably has a 99% chance of winning there right now. However, it is important to note that if Biden does improve significantly in terms of Hillary Clinton's margins, it could be indicative of where the rest of the country stands. But Utah is a 10 p.m. poll closing. We probably will know how the election stands before we get there. But Utah goes to Trump by a solid margin. Now, the next state, like I said, was Alaska. And in 2016, Alaska polls actually underestimated where they stood. It had Trump up on an average, I believe, of 6%. He ended up winning it by 14%. So today, I can actually show you the numbers here. That's a great thing about the 538 average. But Trump is up 4.8%. So this shift actually, it might not actually be, I know exactly what I did. So in 2016, we can go ahead and hit the RCP electoral map between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I believe I just chose the most recent one just because of the fact that the one taken was in June. So I chose the Republican internal that showed Trump up 3%. This is a 12-point shift. So now I understand why it goes into the safe Republican column. Alaska is safe for the GOP. Now we have likely Republican states and likely Democratic states. So I'm actually going to get into the likely Democratic states first, just because the map doesn't actually get too much better for Donald Trump from here. And I want to start off with giving you a general idea of why that's happening. So in New Hampshire, it actually overestimated Hillary Clinton's support, but only by 0.3. So we didn't see too significant of a shift in terms of the expected support versus the actual support. In Maine, we saw a pretty strong decrease in terms of the polls in Maine, but at the same time, I mean, it wasn't enough to take it out of it's currently in the likely pending safe. It's a 15-point margin for Biden right now. Generally, anything above 15% I characterize as safe, so it's 0.1 away from being safe. But the shift, yes, there was a shift, but it wasn't enough to move it down to lean or even tilt. So Maine goes and remains in the likely Democratic column. Virginia, actually, this state remains exactly where it was. Biden is up currently, I believe, 10, 11% in this state. Hillary Clinton was underestimated in 2016. She won the state by a larger margin. Not exactly the big swing whatsoever. It was less than a percentage point, but again, it was a swing in favor of Hillary Clinton, which I don't think that we talk about enough, just because, yes, the Rust Belt may have incorrectly predicted the winner based off the polling averages, but at the same time, there are other parts of the country that were, off, but in favor of Hillary Clinton. And in the state of Nevada, I don't know why I said Nevada, this state remains in the likely Biden column. In fact, Nevada predicted a Donald Trump victory in terms of the polls in 2016. It was the only state where Hillary Clinton won, where Donald Trump was up, and that was the state of Nevada. Consistently, time and time again, whether it's 2018, 2016, 2014, 2012, all the time, for whatever reason, Nevada overestimates Republican support in this state. And Nebraska's 2nd district, actually, moves up to being double digits. It's a 6-point swing from an already 7-point lead for Joe Biden. So this district moves heavily in favor of the former vice president following these polling swings. So where does this put Biden? It puts him at 223 electoral votes. Donald Trump is at 116. I've yet to characterize the likely and the likely lean and tilt Republican states, but I do have to make a note that there are no lean or tilt Republican states. So once we finish with this likely Republican column, you can expect the remaining states to go to Joe Biden in one way or another, and we'll talk about why that is. Again, highlighting every point within this week for this final stretch of the campaign season. Yesterday's video. But if Trump won 100% of undecided voters and third-party voters, he still loses. He's bringing down Republicans in every single part of the ballot. I'm swinging the election. As wrong as he may have said the polls were, as much as they were wrong in 2016, and you will see him lose this election. I'm going to make this point because right now, Donald Trump is not the favorite, and he hasn't been the favorite for months. And when we're talking about his reelection bid, for his sake, I think he's really hoping that something happens where he is able to, play an October surprise or whatever it might be. For example, the Comey letter against Hillary Clinton really hurt her in the final stretch of the campaign season. But unfortunately for him, this election is not 2016. Not only is Biden immensely more popular than Hillary Clinton, over 20 million people have already cast their ballots today. So it's going to be very difficult for him to try to sway same-day voters that are already voting for him by very solid margins. But again, there's a lot to see. We have 17 days to go. A lot can happen. The question is, will it happen? But let's get into the likely states. So Ohio and Iowa generally vote together are likely Republican states. These states were actually severely underestimated in 2016, so the same could happen this time around. If that is the case, Iowa and Ohio go likely for the Republicans, but not as solid as they were 4 years ago. South Carolina joins the likely Republican bunch, and I honestly think that is pretty surprising. Looking at the state of South Carolina, this is a state that was a 14-point margin to victory for Donald Trump in 2016. I didn't expect the polls to be underestimating his support, but I guess actually it wasn't exactly that they were underestimating his support. It's just it wasn't too significant of a shift that South Carolina moves out of the likely column that it already was characterized based off the 538 average in this state. And the final part of the country where we see a likely Republican state, can you guess it? It's hard to guess. It's Maine's 2nd district. It was a 9-point swing from the polls versus the actual result. And if that is applied to the 2020 numbers, it goes likely. But you see it. We all see it. Those 38 electoral votes from Texas highlighted in yellow. Yes, this state goes to Biden if the polls were as wrong as they were 4 years ago. And we'll talk about why once we get there. Let's gloss over some other states that really we know already are going to go to Joe Biden, and this only further exemplifies that point. As I showed you in the beginning of the video, Wisconsin is a tilt Democratic state. That goes narrowly for the Democrats. In the state of Minnesota, this state narrows down, but still goes to Biden. His lead is so large that a 7.9%, 7.8% swing in Minnesota didn't even move it down to the Trump column. Keep that in mind. In Michigan, the lead so strong for Joe Biden that it remains 2-3% for him in Michigan. In Pennsylvania, same exact thing. Biden retains his lead. And now look at the map. He has officially won the presidency. And Hillary Clinton was actually underestimated in Arizona in 2016. Arizona swung to the left. From 2012 to 2016 election result, it swung to the left. And in terms of the polls, it swung to the left as well. 2018 polls great indicator as well. McSally was up by 1, Sinema won by 2-3%. So again, a swing pretty consistent across this entire region, actually. Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada all underestimated Hillary Clinton in 2016, as did Texas. But we'll get to that. So moving past Texas, we've hit Florida. We haven't actually. We're about to hit Florida. Florida goes to Biden. Donald Trump outperformed Florida polling data by a mere 1%. When Biden is up 3%, well, that brings him down to a 2-point lead, but still a victory regardless. So as much as the mainstream media was telling you Hillary Clinton was going to win, the polling data actually didn't indicate that. The polling data indicated she would win with 272 electoral votes, only 2 more than needed. It was not a landslide, and actually it could have ended up being almost as close as the 2000 election, which was 271 to 266. So looking at the state of Florida, that state goes to the Democrats. The next state to go to the Democrats is Georgia. This state already has Biden up today. It overestimated Donald Trump's support in 2016. So Georgia, it underestimated it by 0.3%, but it's not enough to move Georgia out of the Biden column. Biden carries their 16 electoral votes. Again, for the reiterating the point that Biden is doing very, very well, that really, almost all the scenarios, it's hard to see where Donald Trump comes out on top. And in North Carolina, this is a state that goes tilt for the Democrats. I don't think that's too shocking, considering that Biden has maintained a pretty strong and steady lead in this state. It's not exactly, dominating. It's a 3.2% lead, but it is larger than Biden's lead has been since July. And before then, May. So looking at North Carolina, I would say that the Biden campaign should be pretty happy with where they stand today. And swinging it, the 2.7% that it was off in 2016, Biden still carries North Carolina. And that leaves Texas. What is so special about Texas? Well, it is a state with 38 electoral votes. It was likely for the GOP, according to Real Clear Politics, which is infamous for their toss-up characterizations. I mean, look at the lean Clinton states. Connecticut, Oregon, Maine's 1st District. Take a look at the, likely Trump states. South Dakota, Tennessee. That doesn't really match up. So that's besides the point. We're looking at Texas specifically, which had Trump up 12 points on election day. He ended up winning it by 9%, which means if you swing it based off the 2016 error, he's up 1.4% today. It swings in favor of Joe Biden, meaning Biden would win by 1.6%. That's enough to characterize Texas as a lean blue state. So yeah, if you are supporting Trump and you do think that the polls will be as wrong as they were 4 years ago, you do have to realize that the map is not favorable to you. The numbers don't add up. This is a testament to Joe Biden as a candidate and the amount of support Donald Trump has lost. Because Joe Biden, again, with the same exact error that Hillary Clinton lost the election because of, Joe Biden is at 388 as a result to 150. 4 years ago, it was 306 to 232, 304 to 227 to be technical. Looking at this map, the Trump campaign is saying the polls are wrong, but realistically, do they want them to be wrong? I mean, obviously, they don't want to be behind in Texas, and the polls indicate that they're ahead, so they may not want to bet on Texas being wrong. Insider data probably shows that they're ahead in Georgia, but they probably don't want it to only swing 0.3%. They're either going to expect the polls to be drastically wrong, even more so than 2016, even though they've had 4 years to be refined and they have a better track record after 2018. And also, they weren't too far off in 2016. But even if I was applying that to this map, again, Biden wins 388 to 150. This is horrible for President Trump. There's no way that I can draw this and say this is good for Trump. Because not only has he lost the Rust Belt and parts of the South, he's lost 3 traditionally Republican states: Georgia, Texas, and Arizona. And if that happens, well, this would be the biggest electoral college victory since the 60s and a landslide for Joe Biden. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord link for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch and then a playlist for my 2020 election videos. I think there's almost 250 in them now. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.